The wind came down from the red cliffs like a warning that had learned how to breathe. It carried dust, pine, and the old smell of iron that lived in the soil long before borders were drawn. At the edge of the high plain, where the grass thinned and the land broke into stone, a woman stood alone. Her dress was travel-worn, her boots cracked, and her hands trembled as she pressed them to the curve of her belly. Life moved beneath her palm, stubborn and brave. She had walked too far to turn back, and there was nowhere left to hide. Behind her, the sun was lowering, staining the sky the color of old copper. Ahead of her rose the Apache lands, guarded not by walls but by memory. Every ridge carried a story. Every shadow had eyes. She knew this, yet she stepped forward anyway, because fear had become lighter than hope. I saw her before she saw him. From the rocks above the dry wash, the Apache watched her slow progress. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his presence as still as the land itself. The people called him Iron Hawk, not because he loved war, but because he did not bend when the world tried to break him. His face was carved by sun and discipline, his long dark hair tied back with a strip of worn leather. Around his neck hung symbols older than the trail she walked. To his people, he was protector, warrior, judge when judgment was needed. To outsiders, he was a rumor that kept men awake at night. Iron Hawk had been raised on stories of betrayal, settlers who smiled and lied, soldiers who promised peace and brought fire, women and children lost to hunger after treaties turned to ash. The word enemy had been taught to him before he learned the names of stars. It lived deep in his chest, heavy as stone. So when he saw a white woman crossing alone into forbidden ground, his first instinct was not mercy. His hand went to the grip of his weapon, his eyes narrowed, sharp as flint. No one wandered here by accident. She sensed him then, the way a deer senses the hunter. The air shifted, the silence thickened. Steps slowed, then stopped. She turned slowly, her heart hammering so loud she was sure it betrayed her. He stepped into view without sound. For a long moment neither of them spoke. The land listened. Up close, Iron Hawk saw things that did not fit the stories burned into his bones. He saw exhaustion, not defiance. He saw fear, yes, but not the kind that hides knives. And he saw her belly, round and unmistakable, rising beneath the faded cloth. His grip loosened, just a little. She swallowed, forcing her voice to obey her. "Please," she said, the word raw from lack of use. "Don't call me an enemy." The sentence fell between them like a stone dropped into deep water. Iron Hawk felt it strike something inside him that had no name. He had heard many pleas in his life. Some were tricks, some were too late. None had ever sounded like this. There was no bargaining in her tone, no demand for mercy. Only truth, naked and shaking. "You should not be here," he said at last. His voice was low, carrying the weight of command. "These lands are not safe for you." "They are not safe anywhere," she replied. "Shh." But I had to come. Her courage unsettled him more than any threat. "Why?" She lifted her chin, though tears burned her eyes. "Because the child deserves a place that remembers honor." The word honor echoed against the rocks. Iron Hawk studied her face, searching for lies. He saw hunger etched into her cheeks, loss shadowing her eyes. He saw a woman who had buried something precious along the road. He had seen that look on his own people after long winters and broken promises. Still, the law of his people was clear. Outsiders brought trouble. Trouble brought blood. "You carry another man's child," he said, not accusing, simply stating fact. "Yes. Where is the father?" Her gaze fell to the ground. When she spoke again, her voice was steady, but something inside it had cracked. "Gone, by violence that wears a uniform." Iron Hawk felt his jaw tighten. The land seemed to lean closer. She took a step forward before he could stop her. "I am not here to take," she said. "I am here because I have nothing left, because I was told there was still a place where a word meant something." Every instinct in him told him to send her away, to protect his people from yet another wound. But another voice, quieter and older, asked what kind of protector turned away life. "You think my people will welcome you," he said. "I think your people understand loss," she answered. The wind rose again, lifting dust around their feet. Iron Hawk felt the weight of every decision he had ever made pressed down on him. Warrior, leader, son of a land that had been carved and carved again. He looked at her belly once more. He imagined a child born into fear, growing without a name, without roots. He imagined turning his back and hearing later that she and the unborn life had vanished into the hunger of the frontier. The thought cut deeper than he expected. Slowly, without taking his eyes from her, Iron Hawk lowered his weapon. The movement felt like stepping into fire. "You speak dangerous words," he said. She nodded. I know for a moment time seemed to hold its breath. And Iron Hawk did something no one watching from the spirit world would have predicted. He dropped to one knee before her, the earth biting through his trousers, his head bowed not in surrender, but in recognition. The woman gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "This land hears all vows," Iron Hawk said, his voice rough. "If you lie, it will judge you." "I do not lie," she whispered. He looked up at her then, truly looked, and something unspoken passed between them. Not trust. Not yet. But a fragile bridge made of shared pain and fierce hope. From the ridge above, unseen eyes watched. Not all of them welcomed what they saw. Iron Hawk rose, turning toward the path that led deeper into Apache territory. "Come," he said, "before night decides for us." As she followed, her steps unsteady but determined, she did not see the shadow detach itself from the rocks behind them. She did not hear the low murmur carried on the wind, the warning meant for ears trained by war. And Iron Hawk, walking ahead, did not know that by kneeling in the dust before a woman who begged not to be called an enemy, he had set in motion a choice that would test love, loyalty, and the meaning of honor itself. Iron Hawk led her along a narrow trail that cut between stone and scrub, a path invisible to anyone not taught to see it. The sky darkened inch by inch, and the first stars began to show like watchful eyes. The woman struggled to keep pace, her breath shallow, her body heavy with the life she carried. Still, she did not complain. That silence earned a measure of respect from him. "My name is Ashara," she said quietly after a long stretch of walking. "I am called Iron Hawk. Names here are earned, not stolen." They walked again, the space between them careful and alert. The land changed as they moved deeper, the air cooler, the ground softer beneath their feet. Smoke rose faintly in the distance, the sign of a living camp. Ashara's heart lifted and tightened at the same time. "You should know," Iron Hawk said. "Not all who live here will see you as I do." "I do not ask to be seen kindly," she replied. "Only to be seen truly." He glanced back at her then. In the dim light, her face looked carved from endurance. "Truth is dangerous," he said, "especially now, because of soldiers," Ashara said. His jaw hardened, because of broken words. They come closer each season. They speak of peace while measuring land. Ashara's hand moved to her belly again. "That is why I ran. They took my home first. Then they took my husband. Not for what he did, but for what he refused to sign." Iron Hawk stopped walking. The night insects fell silent, as if waiting. "He refused to give up land that was already promised to someone else," she continued, her voice steady but thin. "They called him stubborn, and they called him a threat." Iron Hawk's chest rose slowly. Stories like this were not new, but each one added weight to the old wounds. And the child? "He never knew," Ashara said. "I found out after." The words hung heavy between them. Iron Hawk turned and continued walking, slower now, as if the land itself had grown thoughtful. As they neared the outer edge of the camp, figures emerged from shadow. Warriors stepped forward, their movements fluid and controlled. At their head stood Stone Bear, broad as a cliff, his eyes sharp with suspicion. Beside him was Red Willow, her gaze quick and assessing, a woman whose silence carried authority. Iron Hawk raised a hand, stopping them all. "She walks under my word." Stone Bear's eyes dropped to Ashara's belly, then rose again, colder. "Your word carries weight," he said, "but it does not change what she is." Ashara straightened, though fear pressed against her ribs. Iron Hawk spoke before she could. "What she carries matters more." Red Willow studied Ashara closely. "Why come here?" she asked. "Why risk your child?" Ashara met her gaze. "Because every place I knew taught my child to be ashamed before it was even born." A murmur passed through the gathered people. Some faces hardened, others shifted, uncertain. Stone Bear crossed his arms. "And when soldiers follow your trail, they will not find me willing to betray you," Ashara said. "Ow. I would rather die nameless." Ironhawk felt something stir at that, something close to pride, and something closer to fear. He knew how words like hers could pull a people into storms. Red Willow turned to Ironhawk. "The council must hear this." He inclined his head. At dawn, Ashara was led to a small shelter at the edge of camp, watched but not chained. Red Willow stayed with her, offering water, a blanket, nothing more. Kindness here was careful. As Ashara lay awake, the sounds of the camp surrounded her. Low voices, a baby crying somewhere, the crackle of a fire. It felt like standing at the edge of a life she was not sure would claim her. Beyond the camp, Ironhawk stood alone, staring into the dark. He sensed movement beyond the ridge, a pressure in the air that did not belong to night creatures. He knew the soldiers were closer than they should be. He also knew that bringing Ashara here might have lit a signal fire. From the shadows, a figure approached. It was Night Fox, lean and sharp-eyed, his voice barely a breath. "Tracks," he said. "Fresh. Not hers." Ironhawk closed his eyes briefly. "How many?" "Enough." When dawn came, the council gathered beneath an old cottonwood. Elders sat with faces like carved wood, each line a memory. Ashara stood before them, her hands folded, her heart pounding. Ironhawk stood at her side, a silent wall. The eldest Thundercrow spoke slowly. "You ask for shelter on land that bleeds from memory." Ashara lifted her chin. "Because blood already follows me. I am asking where it will stop." A long silence followed. Before an answer could form, a distant sound rolled across the plain. Not thunder, hooves. Many. Ironhawk felt the tension snap tight as a drawn bow. He looked at Ashara, then toward the horizon, where dust began to rise. The land had heard her vow. Now it waited to see the cost. Dust rolled across the plain like a living thing, thickening as the sound of hooves grew heavier. From the council ground, Ironhawk watched the horizon with a stillness that masked the storm inside him. The elders shifted uneasily. Stone Bear's hand rested near his weapon, not eager, not afraid, but ready.
"Ow."
Red Willow's eyes narrowed as if she were counting breaths between heartbeats. Ashara felt the fear before she understood it. The child inside her stirred, a small insistence that pulled her attention inward and back again. She placed a steadying hand on her belly and looked at Ironhawk. He did not look away from the rising dust. Thundercrow spoke, his voice slow but firm. "We will not decide under the sound of hooves." Ironhawk nodded. "Then we prepare." The camp moved with quiet purpose. Fires were banked. Children were guided into shelters. Warriors took positions that blended into stone and scrub. No one shouted, no one ran. The land itself seemed to accept them into its folds. Ashara was led deeper into the camp, but she stopped when Ironhawk turned toward her. "You stay where Red Willow can reach you," he said. "If the wind changes, you listen to her." "And you?" Ashara asked. "I will listen to the land," he replied. She wanted to say more. Gratitude. Fear. Something else that had no name yet. But the words would not come, and Ironhawk was already moving away, his steps measured, his shoulders carrying the weight of many lives. From the ridge, Night Fox watched the approach with sharp focus. The riders slowed, spreading out the way men do when they expect resistance. Banners fluttered, pale against the sky. The uniforms were familiar enough to chill the blood, promises stitched into cloth, ready to unravel. Night Fox slipped down to Ironhawk's side. "They know where they are," he said. "They want to be seen." Ironhawk's eyes stayed forward. "Then they want something." Below, the riders halted at a distance that suggested courtesy. One man rode ahead alone. He sat straight-backed, his posture practiced, his face set into a shape meant to look calm. His name, known among his own, was Coulter Vale. He had learned the language of negotiation the way others learned how to aim. Coulter Vale raised a hand, empty. "We come to speak." Ironhawk stepped into view, unarmed. The land held its breath again. Vale's eyes flicked briefly to the rocks, the shadows, the places where danger could be waiting. He smiled thinly. Ironhawk, he said, and your reputation travels. Reputations travel faster than truth, Ironhawk replied. Vale nodded as if conceding a small point. We seek a woman. Ironhawk did not answer. A pregnant woman, Vale continued. She crossed into these lands yesterday. She is under our protection. Ironhawk felt the lie like a grit between his teeth. Protection does not follow with guns. Vale's smile tightened. This land is under agreement. Temporary agreement, but agreement nonetheless. Agreements written without us, Ironhawk said. Vale sighed, playing the role of the reasonable man. She carries information, and a child that complicates matters. We would prefer to resolve this without trouble. Trouble, Ironhawk repeated softly. Behind Ironhawk, Stone Bear shifted his weight. Red Willow watched from the edge of the camp, her face unreadable. Ashara stood within the shelter, her ears straining for sounds that might decide her fate. Ironhawk spoke again. You will not take her. Vale's gaze sharpened. You would risk your people for one outsider. Ironhawk met his eyes. I would risk myself for what is right. For a moment, something like doubt crossed Vale's face. Then it hardened. We will return, he said, with papers. With witnesses, with more men. Ironhawk inclined his head. We will still be here. The riders turned back, their retreat measured, their message clear. The dust settled slowly, but the tension did not. As the camp exhaled, murmurs rose. Some voices carried anger, others carried fear. Thundercrow's gaze rested on Ashara, then on Ironhawk. You have bound us to her path, he said quietly. Ironhawk did not deny it. Her path has already crossed ours. Later, as the sun climbed, Red Willow sat with Ashara near a low fire. She handed her a bowl of broth. Eat, she said, and strength makes decisions clearer. Ashara accepted it, her hands steady now. They will not stop, she said. No, Red Willow agreed. They never do. Then why help me? Red Willow studied the flames, 'cause you did not beg for safety. You asked for truth. Across the camp, Stone Bear spoke with Night Fox, his voice low. Ironhawk is walking a narrow edge. Night Fox nodded. Edges are where you see farthest. As the day wore on, Ironhawk walked the perimeter, speaking quietly with scouts, listening to the land. Every track told a story. Every bird call carried a warning. He felt the pull of Ashara's presence like a compass needle, unsettling and steady all at once. Near dusk, Ashara found him by the cottonwood. I know what they think, she said, that I bring war. Ironhawk turned to her. War does not need invitations. She hesitated, then spoke words she had carried alone for too long. There is more they want from me than the child. My husband hid something. A map. 8. Not too gold, too water. Ironhawk's eyes darkened. Water was life. Water was power. Do they know? They suspect, she said. I think I know where. Do you? She shook her head. But they will not stop looking. The truth settled between them, heavy and dangerous. Ironhawk felt the threads tighten, pulling his people closer to a conflict they had not chosen but could not avoid. As night fell, the camp gathered in quiet circles. Songs were sung softly, not of victory, but of endurance. Ashara listened, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. She felt something awaken inside her that felt like belonging and fear woven together. From the darkness beyond the ridge, Coulter Vale watched the campfires glow. He turned to the men beside him. Prepare, he said. They will choose her over peace. Back under the stars, Ironhawk stood watch, the land speaking to him in signs too subtle for words. He knew dawn would bring hard choices. He also knew that whatever came next would change more than borders. Ashara lay awake, her hand over her heart, the child within her, moving like a promise and a warning. Somewhere between the drum of hooves and the hush of the wind, love began to take shape, fragile and fierce. Waiting to be tested by fire, night pressed down on the camp like a held breath. Fires burned low, their glow guarded, their smoke trained to slip away unseen. Ironhawk stood at the highest rise, feeling the pulse of the land through his feet. Every sound carried meaning now. The far cry of an owl, the whisper of brush where no wind moved. The soldiers were not gone. They were waiting, measuring patience the way they measured ground. Below him, Ashara sat with Red Willow, braiding a strip of cloth for the child to come. Her hands were steady, but her thoughts were loud. She felt the nearness of danger like a second heartbeat. Still, when the child moved, she smiled, a small, stubborn light that refused to dim. Red Willow watched her with quiet respect. "You are not broken," she said. Ashara looked up. "I am afraid every moment." Red Willow nodded. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is choosing where to stand while fear speaks. Across the camp, Thundercrow met with the elders. Their voices were low, their faces carved with the weight of choice. The water map Ashara had spoken of changed everything. Water meant survival through drought. It meant leverage against men who believed the land could be owned by ink. Stone Bear listened, arms crossed. "If they believe she knows," he said, "they will come again. Harder they will come whether she stays or leaves," Thundercrow replied. "The question is, who we become when they do." Night Fox entered silently. Scouts report movement to the east. Small groups. Testing. Ironhawk arrived then, his presence settling the room. "It will try to divide us," he said. "It will promise peace to some and punishment to others." "And if we give her up?" Stone Bear asked, though his voice already carried the answer. "They will take more next," Ironhawk said. "Always more." The elders fell silent. Outside, the stars burned bright, indifferent witnesses to human claims. Later, Ironhawk found Ashara near the cottonwood. The tree's leaves murmured softly as if remembering other nights like this. He stopped a respectful distance away. "Should rest," he said. "I cannot," she replied. "Not while you carry this for me." "I carry it because it is ours now," he said. She looked at him, really looked, as if seeing beyond the warrior to the man shaped by loss and duty. "If there is a way to end this without blood," she said, "I want it." Ironhawk considered her words. "Sometimes the strongest stand is refusing to be moved," he said. "Sometimes it is choosing where to stand last." At dawn, a messenger arrived under a cloth of white. Coultervale dismounted alone, his boots dusty, his face practiced calm. He asked for Ironhawk and Thundercrow. They met him at the edge of the camp, the land open and watching. Vale spoke first. "We have documents," he said, producing papers stamped and signed. "We have orders. We also have an offer." Ironhawk did not reach for the papers. "Speak, the woman and the map," Vale said. "In exchange, we withdraw. We leave your winter grounds untouched." Thundercrow's eyes were steady. "For how long?" Vale smiled thinly. "Long enough." Ashara watched from a distance, her heart racing. She could not hear every word, but she could read the shapes of them in posture and pause. She felt the moment tightening like a knot. Ironhawk answered, "There is no map here." Vale's gaze flicked past him, toward the camp. "Then you have nothing to lose." Ironhawk stepped closer. "Mistake what cannot be counted." Vale's patience thinned. "If you shelter her, you invite consequences." Ironhawk's voice did not rise. "If you threaten us, you reveal your weakness." The standoff ended without agreement. Vale mounted and rode away, his back straight, his intent sharp as a blade. The day that followed was heavy with preparation. Paths were cleared for quiet movement. Signals were agreed upon. Children were taught where to go if horns sounded. Ashara was shown hidden springs and shaded paths, not as a prisoner, but as one who might need to run. She took Ironhawk aside. "If it comes to it," she said, "I will go. I will draw them away." Ironhawk shook his head. "You are not bait." "I am a mother," she said. "That makes me dangerous." He met her gaze. "So am I." As the sun dipped, clouds gathered, rare and welcome. The air smelled of rain. Ironhawk took it as a sign, though he did not yet know of what. Night fell again, thicker than before. Then came the sound of hooves, closer this time, spreading wide. Horns did not sound. Guns did not fire. The soldiers moved like men who wanted to take without being seen. Ironhawk signaled once. Shadows shifted. The land opened its many hands. Ashara was guided toward a hidden ravine by Red Willow and Night Fox. As they moved, Ashara felt a sudden pain, sharp and deep. She stopped, breath catching. Red Willow steadied her. "Now is not the time," she said gently. "I know," Ashara replied, jaw set. "The child knows too." Above them, voices rose. Orders whispered, boots scraped stone. Then a shout cut the night, surprised and angry. The soldiers had found resistance where they expected none. Ironhawk moved like the wind through tall grass, not seeking battle, but blocking paths, turning pursuit into confusion. Stonebear held a narrow pass, his presence enough to make men hesitate. Thundercrow stood firm at the camp's heart, unyielding as the cottonwood. Coultervale pushed forward, frustration breaking his calm. He caught sight of Ironhawk and raised his voice. "This ends tonight," he said. Ironhawk answered from the dark. "It ends when you stop." Rain began to fall then, sudden and heavy, turning dust to mud, noise to cover. The land chose its moment. In the ravine, Ashara leaned against stone, breathing through pain, the child pressing toward a future that refused to wait. Red Willow knelt beside her, hands sure, voice calm. "You're not alone," she said. Ashara closed her eyes, listening to the rain, the distant shouts, the steady strength beside her. She thought of the word enemy and how icily it was spoken, how poorly it fit this moment. Above, Ironhawk felt the storm break, and with it something else, a shift he could not name yet. He knew dawn would come with consequences, but also with truth. As the night stretched toward its breaking point, every heart waited, the land listened. And somewhere between rain and resolve, the path toward a hard-won happiness began to take shape, still hidden, still uncertain, but closer than it had ever been. Rain softened the night until every sound felt wrapped in cloth. The shouts faded first, then the frantic scrape of boots. What remained was breath, water, and the steady courage of people who had chosen to stand together. Then the ravine Ashara cried out once, then steadied, her hands gripping Red Willow's forearms, as if holding the earth itself. Red Willow's voice never wavered. "Look at me," she said. "The land knows how to make room." Ashara focused on the rhythm of rain striking stone. Pain surged and passed like a tide. She thought of Ironhawk's stillness, of Thundercrow's weathered calm, of a child who refused to wait for fear to clear the path. When the final wave came, it came clean and fast. A cry cut the rain, small and fierce, and the ravine seemed to widen with relief. Red Willow lifted the child, wrapped and warm. "A son," she said softly, "strong lungs, strong will." Ashara laughed through tears. The sound felt like sunrise. She took her child into her arms, feeling a peace she had not known since before the road. "You are safe," she whispered. "You are home." Above them, Ironhawk felt the shift before he heard it. The night eased its grip. The rain slowed. A quiet spread that was not defeat, but acceptance. He stepped from shadow to shadow, guiding his people back with gestures rather than calls. Stonebear emerged muddy and grinning, unhurt. Night Fox appeared from nowhere and everywhere, eyes bright. Coultervale stood at the edge of the camp, soaked and weary, his certainty washed thin. He looked at Ironhawk with something like recognition. "You will not be moved," he said. Ironhawk did not gloat. "The land is not for sale," he replied, "nor the people who love it." Vale's shoulders sagged. The papers in his coat were damp and heavy, ink bleeding into meaninglessness. He glanced toward the ravine, then back at Ironhawk. "There is no map," he said, not as a question. "There is water," Ironhawk answered. "In memory." Vale nodded once. "I will report that the woman was lost to the storm," he said, "that the pursuit failed. It will buy time." "Time is not peace," Ironhawk said, "but it can teach patience." Vale turned away, his men following without triumph or threat. The rain finished its work, leaving the air clean and cool. At dawn, the camp gathered near the cottonwood. Ashara stood with Red Willow and Night Fox, the child nestled against her heart. Ironhawk approached and stopped, his expression softened by something new. Thundercrow stepped forward, eyes bright with tears he did not hide. "This child was born under rain that chose us," Thundercrow said. "He will be named Sky River, for the water that falls and the water that runs." Ashara bowed her head. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing us." Stonebear grunted. "He has a strong grip," he said, and the camp laughed gently. The days that followed stitched the night into story. Scouts confirmed the soldiers had withdrawn. Springs were shared. Paths were guarded. The water Ashara's husband had protected was found not by map, but by memory and care, guided by elders who knew the land's quiet promises. No papers changed hands. No lines were redrawn. Instead, trust took root where fear had tried to grow. Ashara healed quickly, her strength returning with the sun. She learned the songs of mourning and the work of hands. She listened more than she spoke. When she spoke, it was with gratitude and resolve. She did not forget the world beyond the ridges, but she no longer let it define her child's first lessons. Ironhawk found himself lingering near her shelter, offering help without words. He carried Sky River once, awkward at first, then steady. The child stared at him with solemn eyes, then smiled. Something inside Ironhawk loosened, a knot he had carried since boyhood. One evening, as the sky burned gold, Ashara joined him at the cottonwood. "I owe you more than I can say," she told him. "You owe nothing," he replied. "You gave us a chance to choose ourselves." She studied his face.
"How?"
"What will you choose now?" He considered the horizon, then looked back at her. "I choose to stand where life grows." They walked together through the camp. Children ran past, laughter bright. Elders watched with knowing smiles. Red Willow nodded once, approval quiet but firm. Seasons turned. Sky River learned to crawl, then to walk, then to run toward Ironhawk's open arms. The land thrived with careful tending. Travelers spoke of an Apache camp where words mattered and fear did not rule. Soldiers passed wide, stories softened by distance and rain. One morning, Ashara stood before the council again, not as a supplicant, but as family. "I asked to stay," she said. "Not as shelter, but as belonging." Thunder Crow smiled. "Belonging is proven by care," he said. "You have proven it." Ironhawk took Ashara's hand then, in front of all. "She is not an enemy," he said. "She is our heart." The cottonwood leaves rustled, as if in agreement. Years later, Sky River stood tall beneath that same tree, his laughter carrying across the plain. Ashara watched him. Peace settled deep. Ironhawk stood beside her, steady as stone, warm as sun. The land remembered truth, and the truth remembered them. When the wind came down from the red cliffs, it carried dust, pine, and the promise that honor could still be chosen. And in a place where a woman once begged not to be called an enemy, a family stood whole, the future held firmly in their hands.